The funeral service for former Vice President Dick Cheney will get underway soon at Washington National Cathedral. Former President Joe Biden, former First Lady Jill Biden, and they are expected to attend along with former President George W. Bush and Cheney's daughter, former Congresswoman Liz Cheney, who's expected to deliver remarks. Joining us now from outside the cathedral is MS Now senior White House reporter Vaughn Hilliard. Vaughn, what can you tell us?
Hey, good morning, Mika. We are watching guests here arriving. This funeral service is slated to begin in just over an hour for now. For folks that are watching those shots inside, we've been keeping track of who has been arriving so far, and we've seen the likes of John Brennan, John Bolton, Bill Kristol, also as well as Scooter Libby, of course, the close aide to former Vice President Dick Cheney. This is a moment here where you are seeing a collection of folks from across political parties who are involved in Washington D.C. governance over the last 5 decades. If you look at Dick Cheney's life, he came into the Oval Office for the first time in his early 30s as Deputy Chief of Staff to then President Gerald Ford. He was Deputy Chief of Staff to Chief of Staff Donald Rumsfeld. And then 30 years later, he had returned to the Oval Office as the Vice President of the United States to George Bush. The Bush family, as well as the Biden family, will be at the funeral service today, as well as every living Vice President, including Kamala Harris, Dan Quayle, Mike Pence, and Al Gore. Among those who were not invited, I am told, include the current President of the United States, Donald Trump, as well as J.D. Vance, the Vice President. Vice President Vance is going to begin a fireside chat just down the road with Breitbart, a podcast here over the next few minutes. This is quite a moment. Dick Cheney, folks will recall, back in 2022, ahead of the re-election campaign of his daughter, Liz Cheney, cut a television ad in which he made very clear, while talking about Donald Trump, in our nation's 246-year history, there has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. He tried to steal the last election using lies and violence to keep himself in power after the voters had rejected him. He is a coward. The vice president's residency, where Dick Cheney lived for 8 years, is less than a mile down the road from here at the National Cathedral in Washington. During this service here, among those who will be paying tribute to the life of the former vice president will be his longtime cardiologist, who became a friend, and the two men co-authored a book together, as well as Pete Williams, our longtime friend and colleague here at MSNBC and NBC News, the former justice correspondent, who, when we talk about Dick Cheney's life, Mika, folks should recall that he served in Congress for 10 years from Wyoming, which is where our Pete Williams was from as well. He served as an aide in Congress to Dick Cheney before going to the Pentagon to serve as an aide to him there when Dick Cheney became the Secretary of Defense in the 90s under George H.W. Bush administration. He will pay tribute to the former vice president. And then George W. Bush, the former president for which Dick Cheney served, will then speak. And then 3 of his grandchildren and, of course, former Congresswoman Liz Cheney will pay her respects there from inside the cathedral to her late father as well. Mika.
MS Now White House reporter Vaughn Hilliard, thank you very much for your coverage. We'll be watching throughout the day. Thank you.